Welcome to Tailgate Talk. I'm host Sean Ritter. You can find me on socials at The Real Ritter. Joining us today, my man Eric Tasker. ET5504 is where you find him, and our man Paul Wagner. Wag's still waiting on that, but we're going to talk about a lot of stuff on the show today. Most importantly, I'm kind of excited to recap something we talked about in an earlier show. It was a couple weeks ago. It mentioned the situation in Wyoming and passing of the 90-10 law, and the internet was up in arms of what was going to happen and what was going on, and this affects so-and-so and that, and they were trying to get me. It was really cool that when we put that episode out, I had someone reach out to me via Instagram, stumbled upon us, which, by the way, if you're not following us, do it now. It's at On The Tailgate. That's on Instagram, Twitter as well, at On The Tailgate. So got the email that said, hey, I used to be an outfitter in Wyoming. I think I can shed a lot of light into the situation. So we're going to get that gentleman on the phone and talk to him about that and kind of get the side from the outfitters in Wyoming coming up here on the show yet this morning. What else are we talking about? Canada. There's some changes if you're traveling in and out of Canada. I know myself and Tasker are going to be headed off to Ballard's Black Island like we do each and every year. In fact, something about that trip I'm going to share with you coming up here in just a bit. But if you travel to Canada at all, whether you're going to Ballard's or any of the other great Canadian resorts that are on Lake of the Woods or anywhere else in Canada, the travel restrictions and how that's changed, we'll walk you through that just a little bit. And maybe just a little kind of advice when it comes to fishing in general in the springtime and really life in general. And something important that I think everyone has to be open-minded to if they want to find themselves successful. So let's get the show rolling. Let's get rocking. And why don't we start talking about Canada, because that's where I'm super excited to be going fishing at Ballard's Black Island. I've been doing this trip for many, many years, and it's been really cool to invite you to come along each and every year. It's kind of a guest-guided trip, so to speak, with things. So we go up there and we hang out, and it's fully guided. All the meals are included. This is an all-inclusive fishing trip. They've got an amazing lodge there, full cable TV. A lot of times when I've been up there, it's been like in May, opening week, I've typically fished up there. So it's right around the time of the NHL finals. There's nothing better than watching hockey in Canada. This year's trip, however, is going to be taking place in August, which I mentioned something about that trip that I had cool to share with you. We've been sold out. Now, this trip was supposed to happen 2 years ago. Obviously, COVID changed it. Last year didn't happen again because the borders were closed in and out of Canada. We've got 2 spots that just opened up. Unfortunately, someone that was going to come with us on the trip is expecting his first child right around the time of the trip. So totally understandable, totally. So they are not able to make the trip, which means there are 2 spots that have opened up. So if you have any interest in coming to join myself and Tasker fishing in Canada, we are going to slay smallmouth. There's muskie, amazing walleye fishing as always on Lake of the Woods. Saturday, August 20th through Wednesday, August 24th is that trip. It's like $1,000, $1,000 a person. All-inclusive fishing in Canada, fully guided. All of the equipment's included, baits, you name it. All you need to do is buy your licenses and show up. It's pretty simple, and it is such an amazing trip. Get a hold of man Gary at Ballard's. I can give you the number, 218-634-1996. Again, that's 218-634-1996. Or just look them up, bbi.com. I believe should take you to Ballard's Black Island. Search it out on Google, and all the info's up there for you on the trip. But it is an absolute epic adventure into Canada. Would love to have you come join myself and Tasker for a couple of days of awesome fishing and sharing stories and hanging around the bonfire and everything good that comes with that. But whether you're traveling there with us or you're traveling to Canada at all to do anything in the outdoors, of course, the borders have been closed for so long. Well, that changed just a couple of months ago where they opened it up, but it was proof of vaccination, and you had to pass a COVID test 72 hours before entering, much like if you've traveled anywhere outside of the United States, like Mexico, say, and you've had to take a COVID test in order to return back to the States. Well, Canada has had that to go into their country, even for U.S. citizens that were vaccinated. As of April 1st, that now went away. So proof of vaccination is all that's required to go into Canada. So if that's what you're thinking about, or if you were kind of on the fence of like whether or not I should do a trip, I just don't want to deal with getting a COVID test and all the hassles with that and blah, blah, blah. It's no longer required passing over into Canada. That was as of April 1st. So, great time to get to Canada. I said it last year on the show, was they were looking at borders still being closed and just the economic impact that it was going to put on all of those amazing outfitters and guide services that live and breathe and work on Lake of the Woods, the body of water that I spend a lot of time on in Canada. I feel for each and every one of those resorts and what they've been through, and to survive 2 years of absolutely no clients when that's, livelihood of a lot of people. I say, get up there, get to Canada. They're open. They want to take you fishing. And after 2 years of not a whole lot of people up there fishing, they are going to be some stupid fish all of this year. So it's going to be some amazing fishing, which is why, I don't know if you can tell by my voice, I am so stoked and jacked to get up to Canada and slay some smallmouth. So again, if you want to join us, Ballard's Black Island, you can look them up. We've still got 2 spots that have just opened up. This is rare if this late in the game to have 2 spots open up to join us in Canada. So we will have the entire island booked. Our group, it is going to be absolutely a blast. Mentioned one of the things as well for success, I think, in general of any season, not just, me being so excited about fishing season and all that kind of ramping up, but, as anglers and I think as outdoors people, we tend to get very comfortable in our certain things, in our routines. We have our favorite lakes we go to and our favorite spots with our favorite lures, and you get in that rut, that funk of just doing the same things. I was reading an article recently, it was talking about that, and this is something that I've tried really myself to do, and I did a lot of it last year, is getting out of that comfort zone and being comfortable with being uncomfortable and trying new things, embracing change, embracing something different, going to a lake you've never seen before and trying to catch fish on it, using tactics or lures that you've never used before and, just trying to figure that stuff out. Hunting, you can use in the same scenario, looking at different places to go hunting or hunting a different species. Say, you've really only done deer hunting and maybe it's like, hey, I want to try pheasant hunting this year or something else. I want to do spring turkey, which is coming up. Just embracing change and learning new things generally can help us become not only better people, more versatile, but in the end of it, more successful. And I found that myself in fishing last year, again, going to lakes that I'd never fished before. I mean, the only time that I'd seen them was looking at maps and studying lake maps. When I rolled up to the launch, that was the first time I'd even seen that water with my eyes and going out and fishing. I found it so much fun. It was a struggle at times to figure it out, but once you started to put the pieces together, it made it so much more fun. So if you find yourself in that rut at all, think about that. Try something new. Embrace the change. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. When I saw the article, I'm like, it's something I felt like I needed to talk about on the show because we all get that way. We all get in our rut. We all get comfortable with our same things, and embracing the change and being uncomfortable will make things more fun. Trust me. All right. I've been there, done that. I've tried it. So maybe that being uncomfortable thing is being uncomfortable with going to another country to fish. Well, we got 2 spots for you to come join us in Canada. I'm just saying, throwing it out there. If you want more info or want to chat about it, hit us up on our socials On the Tailgate. When you send us some more, we'll actually post a bit about the trip and, again, links how you can get a hold of everyone there at Ballard's Black Island, right on our Instagram, On the Tailgate. Make sure you go there and follow us. Follow me as well, The Real Ritter. At ET5504 is my man Eric Tasker. So a couple weeks ago on the show, we were talking about the 90-10 rule, the new law that was put in place in Wyoming, and how that affects non-resident hunters. And the internet's been up at arms about the entire thing. Well, we kind of addressed it and was sharing some of the information here on the show. Got an email from a gentleman by the name of Carlton, who used to be an outfitter in Wyoming and wanted to join us and give a little insight from an outfitter's perspective that he felt maybe wasn't being shared elsewhere. And so we're going to get him on the phone here.
Hey, Sean, Carlton Lower.
Hey, Carlton. Great to hear from you, man.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks ago on the show, we got into the conversation. I was just kind of talking about this Wyoming 90-10 rule, this big law that had passed, basically saying that 90% of the tags are going to go to residents, 10% to non-residents. It used to be 80-20, and how this is affecting everyone. And what, online in forums and social medias and stuff, it's kind of blown up. People are like, oh, this is terrible, and they're just, trying to hurt us, kind of get a little bit into the economic impact on the state of Wyoming and their game commission of what it would be if people truly stop putting in for tags that almost are becoming impossible now just with the number of tags and the way the allocation is going of such. You had reached out, which thank you for that again. And you used to be a guide in Wyoming and had some insight as to a little bit different perspective on the whole thing that maybe isn't being shared elsewhere online and that we really didn't hit on our show talking about it?
I mean, just to give you a little backstory, I just wanted the messaging to, what the true messaging behind all this stuff. It's super complicated, Sean, as far as what's going on up there.
Right. And I think from my perspective, and I love that you reached out.
I've moved to Texas for, I took some work down here, so I am out of Wyoming, but I've lived there. I lived there. I outfitted there. I sold real estate there. I've done it, but I also wanted, I just want the messaging. This bill is by no means enhancing anything for outfitters. It's actually undercutting a lot of things, and it's also undercutting a lot of things for just the economy of Wyoming, because hunting is such an integral part, and tourism is an integral part to Wyoming. So that's kind of where I was coming from, that this is not just here to protect the outfitters. The residents are the ones that don't like the non-residents. Some residents.
Carlton, what you said there is actually a really good point, and that's, a lot of what first people think is, oh, I'm a non-resident, this is out to, get me. And that's the messaging that I had said originally in the show, is kind of talking about that's how it looks on the outside, is that it's making it harder as a non-resident to hunt out there. But what you said right there was exactly, I think, a point that's missing, is that there's these small communities, that there's people that are outfitters that, make their money on non-residents coming there.
Absolutely. The mom and pop restaurants, the mom and pop hotels. There's so many facets of the hunting and tourism industry in Wyoming that we honestly don't know what the long-term effect's going to be on. I mean, I can tell you from an outfitting standpoint that, if you cut my tags in half of the amount of non-residents that I can draw from, that's going to have an impact on every outfitter in the business. So,
how long did you guide and be an outfitter there in Wyoming?
So I moved to Wyoming in 2003. My father-in-law was an outfitter there since the 1970s, early 1970s, and I took over the business when he passed away about 7-8 years ago. But as soon as I moved there, I was guiding for him. I climbed all the way up, foreman on the totem pole packer, up to getting my outfitter's license and running the business.
And did you find it was far more non-resident people booking with the outfitter, or was there actually a fair amount of residents that drew tags?
There are a fair amount of residents. When you look at what this law has done, what's changed is for the big five: your bighorn sheep, moose, mountain goat, grizzly bear, ice. And those are the hardest tags to draw in the state of Wyoming right now. The residents in it.
So do you think, General, the whole thought and idea behind it is herd control at the end of the day, of, less hunters, so to speak, with just trying to limit the tags more?
The quota for our bighorn sheep, our moose, our bison, and we don't hunt grizzly bears. Those are protected still, but we do have the for when they do take them off the list for us to be able to hunt. But from a management standpoint, it doesn't change the management aspect, because it's not like they're adding the bighorn sheep tag. The bighorn sheep tag for a resident is $152, whereas the non-resident is like $2,200.
Yeah.
So from a financial standpoint, there's a group out of Jackson Hole, and his name is Rob Shaw. He's got a website, 307, and thinking of this guy, because he's the one that's been bringing this legislation, and he's basically wanting Wyoming to get in line with all the other western states that are roughly on that 90-10 standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy every year during the legislative session, we've been fighting legislation that he's been trying to bring into play. And, as an Outfitters Association, we've done everything in our power to keep this stuff from going through, because it is going to have a bigger effect than just non-resident tags. Like I said, on the economies of these small towns and the residents that frequent. So,
I think that right there is the biggest point that's missing of everything that I've read about or seen, because as soon as this comes across, everyone's always going to doom and gloom and say it's the worst thing, and that's what drew us on our show to just cover and talk about it, is all like, this is something that's floating out there, this is what I see, I don't know what it means, could it be this? Which is, again, thank you for emailing, and that's that's what I love, like, of anything you see, read, whatever, it's only one coat of paint. on the entire project.
Exactly.
And there's so many layers to it. So for you to reach out and have that perspective, I absolutely appreciate and love.
That's what I saw. I saw it on Instagram, and I don't know. It came through my feed, and anything I see Wyoming lives and hunting, I look at. And I went and listened to your, the little blurb that you heard, and I'm like, wow, I need to call. I need to email this guy or call him. I'm glad your contact info is easily accessible. I said,
you know what? And that's the perspective that most people are not sharing it, is the economic impact in just what that means. So it's not, because I think a lot of times when it's people that aren't like me, living in, hosting this and doing everything, I'm in the state of Wisconsin, right? I'm not in Wyoming. There's a lot of people that are outside that right away the first thought is, well, how does this affect me? They're trying to get to me. Whoever's trying to screw me, and not think about, no, it's actually a lot of people are being hurt by something. I mean, the reason the contact info is there is that, I want people to reach out, and if they have something to add, something to say, to do it, because, we don't progress in our thoughts, feelings, or, anything if we don't have a conversation about stuff.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it really, the law only affects those big 5 species right now. I can tell you they are making a push to try and do the same thing for elk, antelope, and mule deer.
And that was the next question I was going to ask, is your thoughts on that, if that was going to affect that. Because most people, I think, when they go west to hunt, especially, in and around the Midwest that travel there, it's for those 3. It's for, for your elk, your mule deer, and antelope.
Right. But there is going to be a push for that to happen, and from everything I read on these, hunting forums, and, I think the out west hunting has changed so much with YouTube, with Eastman's, with Hunt and Fool, all of these, and social media in general. There's more people wanting to go out west and hunt, and the demand is super high for all of these tags. And when you do that, the game association doesn't have any problem selling out all the non-resident elk tags, deer tags, antelope tags. Mm-hmm. It's just, I get it. Now that I've moved to Texas, Wyoming is probably the greatest state for hunting and for also public land access. Mm-hmm. And, I get it where these non-resident guys are saying, look, all of these elk and antelope and deer, a lot of them live on public land, which is basically everybody's land. You in Wisconsin, you now down in Texas, it is enumerated in all the state documents that the wildlife does belong to the state and they're interested to manage that. So these guys I see a lot where the problem that I see is that they're changed for a lot of these guys who are invested lots and lots of money into putting in every year in the preference points. What it does is that basically some of these guys have been putting in for 20 plus years, and now you shrink the tag number in half, and it just basically it takes that guy that's 65, 68 years old that's looking to draw that shoot tag and could push him into his 80s, or if not further. And that's the unfortunate thing that I see from a hunting standpoint. That's really not fair to and it's also not. But they'll argue that, hey, I'm a resident of Wyoming, and it's still taking me 25, 28 years worth of preference points to try and draw a shoot tag. So there's both sides to the story, and it's just such a super complicated. I don't think to make everybody happy and trying to figure it all out. You can't make everybody happy.
No, you know what? That's exactly the best way to wrap everything, is that everything's super complicated, and you're always going to make someone not happy.
Right.
Thanks for the perspective, Carlton. Really appreciate it, man. I thank you again.
Yeah, no worries, man. I mean, I hope I'm by no means saying that, my opinion. It's my opinion. I wanted to try and educate you guys on, from a boots on the ground standpoint, where the backstory is on all of this stuff that's going on now.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much, Carlton. Again, if you want to weigh in anything we ever talk about on our show, feel free to email us. The email is posted right there on the podcast, or otherwise you can always hit us up via our socials @On the Tailgate. You take care, Carlton. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, John.
All right. Wag's going to jump in here, and we're going to talk about with the new seasons coming, be it turkey season, be it fishing season, things you do differently as you head into a new season. How have things been lately? As we kind of getting caught up. I know we did stuff over the phone. We were talking last week, but I still feel like it's been forever.
Yeah, things are going okay. It's I'm getting excited for turkey season. It seems like I get excited, like you get excited for fishing. Ice is thawing. You can get the boat out. You can start doing things like that. I think I'm still in that situation because I'm so late to the game where I am now excited about the seasons. Sort of when I was in high school, I got excited about baseball. As soon as baseball was over, then it was football season. As soon as football was over, it was basketball season. So I'm started getting into that, and I'm really anxious for the turkey season to come up. I think things are going to be good. I like it. I like the fact that I'm doing more with my property now. I frost seeded, as we know, like right now.
Yeah, we talked about that last week on
Yeah.
the show a little bit. There's some stuff that you did ahead of time, which I was actually going to talk about and bring up some stuff we do before seasons. We can get to that later on, but.
Yeah, so you had told me, so when we talked about the frosting, you'd give me a couple off the air, you'd given me a couple herbicides or pesticides to kill grass and not clovers, and I'm still going to go up there and do that. I haven't done it because it says to start to kill the greens that you don't want. You got a little bit of green growth growth to start. So I think maybe I'll let it come up, let it show its face, and then go with those sides and then just kill them off and make sure they're clover plots.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I mean, the thing I was going to bring up, I mentioned starting things, is before you get into seasons, do you find yourself restocking, replenishing, buying new things, upgrading equipment? I mean, do you do that before turkey season, before deer season, before fishing? Is there anything that you do, or is it just kind of focusing on your land and the land management aspect of, growing things?
Yeah, I think that's it. If something new comes out or I see something and it intrigues me, I like to do it. I think the biggest thing I do is, you being the fisherman and me not, sometimes my line, now I don't know this, you'd have to tell me this because I just thought of it right now when you asked me the question. I switch out the line every 2 years about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it dries out or what.
I think that's a good standard for most people. I mean, somebody like, every season you should re-spool. I mean, we're not fishing for $100,000 in a tournament.
You're right, okay.
Like most all of us, we're not. So, if you change out your line every 2 years, it's fine. I've actually got some spools, I think, that probably my line is like 4 years old, but it's a braid.
Gotcha.
And I don't ever tie straight braid. I run large fluorocarbon leaders off my braid. My braid is basically just the length of the line, or the backing, so to speak. What the fish are seeing, everything that I do, I'm looking at anywhere from I don't know. Sometimes I do 12 feet. Sometimes I do 3 feet fluorocarbon leader on it. And those are constantly being, new leaders constantly being retied. But the actual, any of my spinning gear that I run braid, you can say, I'm doing it wrong. I don't actually redo my braid after every season. The thing that I do spend a lot of time ahead of time before season, which is I've been doing a lot of lately, is going through tackle, figuring out what I have, what I'm going to need or want for the upcoming season, and start looking around and start placing tackle orders and trying to figure out what I want for some stuff. I joked with Tasker, we were texting a couple days ago. I was like, I was up online, whatever, and he told me something he was doing. I was like, I just bought 2 new reels and spent $50 on X-Zone lures. I dropped $50 in plastics and bought 2 new reels. I'm like, that was my day. How about you?
Oh yeah, I look. That's about the only thing that I do. My musky baits, as we've talked about, I don't necessarily go out there for the spring. I mean, whatever. I can smallmouth, largemouth. I mean, I do, but my musky baits are my main thing, and I have a small selection of them. I'm going to say about 15 to 20, and those are my go-tos, and I use them all the time. I don't go out and spend $50 on a musky lure. The ones that I have, whatever I've gotten over at Dick's or wherever I go.
You do a lot of Suics, right? You're saying you fish a lot of Suics?
Yeah. And you know what? So my range in spending on those, whether it's a different color, I don't necessarily veer off of my color pattern. Sometimes I'll replenish that same color pattern. Like I said, I really like I like the walleye. I like the walleye paint. I like the silver. I like the chartreuse. There's different colors I like. I don't fade off too much, so I like to spend. I think my musky lure limit is probably about $25 because when I go over that, I'm afraid.
I'm kind of there with you. And honestly, I feel that yes, color may be a factor, but I think that's on a minute level. I think the action of a lure is more important than the color. I mean, Gerald Swindle says it best. I mean, when it comes to jigs, you need 2 colors of a jig. You need a black jig and a brown jig. That's it. There's all these colors of jigs, but at the end of the day, black jig and a brown jig, you're going to catch fish. It's how you use the jig. It's there, when it comes to crankbaits, the action of the crankbait. Because think about, what do fish actually see?
movement, action.
Right. Or they feel it in their lateral line and they react to it and strike. It's not, it's not often that they're staring at it like, oh, that doesn't look like a natural color pattern. I shouldn't eat that. Most of the time when they eat it, something's pissed them off. They're just going to eat it.
And with all your bass, everything, like I go to it now. Obviously, we're in the transition before turkey and after. There's a lot of fishing going on right now, and we watch it all the time. I do on both the channels, so I'm watching live. You're right. As soon as that bait, as soon as it hits the water, bam, something. It's nothing to do. It's with the action. It's with the nuisance, the annoyance. And I would assume when we were talking earlier, I don't know necessarily, we were talking about salmon runs and coho and kings. If they're not hungry, they might just bite that bait because they're pissed.
I like to piss fish off.
Yes.
It was the first year I went up to Ballard's, Black Island in Canada, and fished with Gary, who runs the island up there. I was up there throwing a swim jig and like an aggressive, like larger profile. I do like a full swim jig with like a big paddle tail. He's like a white spinner bait. Gary's always like, oh, the best smallmouth bait, throwing up here and casting on shore and stuff, just a plain white spinner bait. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. But then I go up there and I start just cracking him doing my swim bait thing. And I'm like, he's watching how fast I'm working it. I'm jerking it and super aggressive.
Yeah.
And I'm slaying him. And I'm like, I'm just trying to piss him off. I don't want him to have a chance to look at the lure.
Right.
I just want to throw it past them, and they get pissed because something is like extremely aggressive in their space, and they just smack it because they're pissed at it.
Yep.
And that's why I'm not a huge finesse fishing fan, like flipping a jig and all that. That's not my style. I am much more of a fast moving bait. I know in the realm of things I'm doing, getting into kayak fishing and competitive kayak fishing, I have to become more versatile. I can do those things. I just don't like doing them.
Right.
I spent last summer doing some more of those things that I don't really like to do, but okay, I'm going to have to do it because there's going to be a body of water that I have to go to fish at that some of the styles that I like to fish aren't what are working at that time. That's not the pattern they're on or whatever. So, yeah. Some of the baits I've been purchasing, I've been doing a little more finesse of things. Or really, there's one, I mentioned X-Zone. There's one of their newer baits I think is going to be this year's Berkeley Max Scent Flatworm, back when the flatworm came out in 2020, when it won tons of tournaments and you could not find them in stores, sold out. I think that's what this specific X-Zone soft plastic bait is going to be this year. I think it's going to be the new smallmouth candy because you can Ned rig it, you can drop shot it. It's awesome, and I'm going to Ned and drop shot it a lot.
I think you mentioned that earlier. I think we've talked about that before. I think we have. But
I know I've talked about the flatworm. I've talked about the Berkey Max Scent Flatworm, how great that was.
Couldn't get it, couldn't find it. COVID. Remember we were talking about COVID, lack of supplies, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I'm with you. That's why I've actually had some listeners or some guys that I call, and you've known them. I've sent text messages over to you, and though I don't have socials yet, they blow up my phone. But I don't like musky fishing on lakes, and I just don't do that. I like floating. I like doing things. I like seeing different things. I just can't do it. I've done it one time, and I don't want to circle a reef, a drop, a point, a rocky hole, a weed bed, submerged vegetation. I don't like that. I don't like suckers for muskie. I don't like planer boards. I like fast action, throwing these big whoop, 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 and trying to if there's a cedar tree overhanging and I see a little shady spot, I want to hit it in that hole, bam, and hopefully he hits it. Or come around a rock that's creating an elevation over there. I want to come through there. I want to do that. I got to be fast. And maybe that's just different. Like you said, if I'm going to come up and just try to sit on a pier and flip under a dock and try to, I like it. That's why I like musky fishing that way rather than on a lake.
Make one pass past it this way, turn around, go the opposite way, make the pass the opposite direction because sometimes they just like baits coming from this direction versus that direction. So that's
what's the current underneath? Why is it doing this? Why? Okay, the temperature. Oh, it's a degree. It's a degree warmer over here. What? No, let's just float and let's just get lucky because, as we've talked before, so much more action. No 10,000 casts for me. I can't handle that.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm trying to think back. My first muskie I caught, I was not 10,000 casts.
Right.
First muskie technically came from a tip-up ice fishing. out of all places, the Fox River in
Really?
De Pere. Ice fishing out there as a kid in high school. Muskie on a tip up out there. That'd technically be the first muskie. But the first muskie hook and line caught was up in Canada. And yeah, there's no way it was 10,000 casts. Because I didn't really start thinking about actually muskie fishing until later on, until I started actually going up to Canada. When it's like, okay, well, there's actually like a legitimate chance at these fish up here. Like, okay, I'll do some more muskie fishing. I've, again, always been I'm a brown fish person.
Yeah.
I love my smallmouth, but that's because of where I grew up. I grew up in Green Bay. I grew up a Great Lakes guy. So Sturgeon Bay and fishing smallmouth is still where my heart is. It's what I love. So if I have the choice, it's always what I want to do is fish the brown fish, which was on our day. Would you rather green fish or brown fish? Majority was all brown fish. And I was like, yeah, those are my peoples, but I still love catching largemouths too. Tasker was one of the ones that voted green fish, but, he was just because he wanted to be different, I think is what it was. Anything that's on the line.
Anything I can eat.
I think at the end of the day, that's how we all are. We're just happy to have anything at all be successful, whether it's hunting or, that's the kind of stuff we love to talk about. So if you haven't done it already, make sure you follow us on our socials @On the Tailgate. I am at The Real Ritter. My man Eric Tasker at ET5504. And we're going to be back next week. Got some cool stuff coming up here on the show. Some interesting things we're going to share with you, and maybe a co-collaboration with another pretty big show. We're going to leave that little nugget there for you. Can't wait to chat with you next week.